Hi everyone, welcome to Storytime Sunday. My name is Tara Ross and I am the author of several books. I am also the host of a history page on Facebook and I post history nuggets every morning. So if you love American history, come find me every morning at about 7:30 Central and I'll post a history nugget to start off your day right. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed tonight's story instead. Now, last week I asked everybody to comment and let me know where they're watching from. Thank you for doing that. I got responses from as far away as China, Bangkok, the United Kingdom, Panama, Uruguay. I'm so happy that people all around the globe are enjoying these stories. So tonight's story, of course, is about Independence Day. As you know, America is going to celebrate its birthday on July 4th of this week. Now, what you may not know is that not all founders were on board with that. Some of them thought July 2nd was a better birthday for America. John Adams, in particular, thought that July 2nd was the most important day. That was the date on which Congress had first resolved that these United Colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown. Now, some of you might remember I told a story. I got a picture for you. Some of you might remember that I told a story earlier this week about a guy named Caesar Rodney. I've got his quarter here. There's his quarter. Caesar Rodney rode all night from Delaware to Pennsylvania, about 80 miles, so that he could get to this vote on July 2nd on time. Without his vote, Delaware was not going to vote for independence. And John Adams, to go back to him, I have something from him too. You guys tell me if this is a mirror image. I think it's right. I worked really hard on it. But this is John Adams' handwriting, and I'm going to show you the real quote. He wrote Abigail Adams the next day, and he said, "The second day of July, 1776, will be the most memorable epoch in the history of America." John Adams really thought July 2nd was the important day. So if July 2nd was so important, how did we end up with July 4th as our birthday? Well, the answer to that, of course, is that July 4th is the day that the formal written declaration was approved by Congress. Now, that document has a story all its own. It was, also, I have another picture for you too. On June 11th, 1776, Congress appointed a committee of 5 men to draft that document. Now, I'm guessing you guys have seen this before. Okay, but do you know who the people in the middle are? I blew them up. So here's the blow-up version. You recognize Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams. The other guys are Roger Sherman and Robert Livingston. This is the Committee of 5 that Congress tasked with writing the document. Okay, so it'd be nice if we knew what had happened behind closed doors. Naturally, all of those men had different memories about what had transpired. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson in particular had very different ideas. Now, if you ask John Adams, he said, well, Thomas Jefferson wanted him to write it, and Thomas Jefferson had proposed that, and that John Adams declined and wanted Jefferson to do it. And when Jefferson asked him why, he said, well, I've got several reasons. In the words of Adams, he said, reason first, you are a Virginian, and a Virginian ought to be at the head of this business. Reason second, Adams said, I am obnoxious, suspected, and unpopular. You are very much otherwise. Reason third, you can write 10 times better than I can. So Jefferson, again, according to Adams, said, well, if you're decided, I will do as well as I can. Now, when Jefferson heard all of this, he did not agree at all. He said, no, the Committee of 5 asked me to do it the whole time. Again, in the words of Jefferson, he said, the committee unanimously pressed on myself alone to undertake the draft. I consented. I drew it, but before I reported it to the committee, I communicated it separately to Dr. Franklin and Mr. Adams. Here is one artist thought of that. I communicated it separately to Dr. Franklin and Mr. Adams requesting their corrections because they were the 2 members of the committee of whose judgments and amendments I most wished to have the benefit. It probably did not look like this. This is what one artist thought it could have looked like. But it's a nice portrait. Jefferson did leave us additional information about what he was trying to accomplish as he drafted this document. He said he was, quote, not trying to find out new principles or new arguments never before thought of. Instead, he wanted to place before mankind the common sense of the subject in terms so plain and firm as to command their assent and to justify ourselves in the independent stand we are compelled to take. He wanted it to be an expression of the American mind. Now, one thing you may not know about this document is that it contained a vehement anti-slavery rant, for lack of a better word. It was very anti-slavery, which is just interesting given the furor over Jefferson and his statues today. There is another side to the story, and part of it is that he drafted a declaration that contained anti-slavery language. Now, I'm going to show this to you, and I'm going to read he blasted the king for waging cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation thither. Later in the same paragraph, he blasts the king again for suppressing every legislative attempt to prohibit or to restrain this horrible commerce in which men can be bought and sold. Now, as you know, this anti-slavery language did not end up in the final version of the Declaration. It got edited out. The Committee of Five and Congress both made changes. Jefferson was not happy about any of it. He said the document had been mangled. One member of Congress wrote Jefferson, apparently trying to make him feel a little bit better. He told him basically, don't worry. Quote, the thing is in its nature so good that no cookery can spoil the dish for the palates of freemen. So as you know, the formal Declaration of Independence was approved on July 4th by Congress. Copies were printed, they were sent all over the country, they were even sent to England, they were published in newspapers, they were read before groups such as George Washington's Army. I have a painting of that too. After the reading in New York, where George Washington's Army was, the statue of King George III got torn down. Wouldn't that have been crazy to be there? That must have been something else. And then another reading occurred, of course, in front of the Philadelphia State House. There's another artist's idea of what that looked like. And can you imagine what it must have been like to be in the crowd that day as they read the closing lines of the Declaration of Independence, which read, in part, we therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, solemnly publish and declare that these United Colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. So I hope you guys have a good Independence Day on Wednesday. Thanks for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed my story. Please don't forget to follow me on Facebook every morning. If you love American history, I'll post something new every day at 7:30 in the morning, 7:30 Central. Regular readers of my page know that tomorrow is Medal of Honor Monday, and I will feature a Medal of Honor recipient in that post. It'll be a World War II recipient, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks again for joining me. I'll see you next time.